It's my really loud dryer. Washer, actually, sorry. Okay, so here's what we're going with. I'm sitting in the MSc, looking down at that midterm sheet like, what am I gonna do? And eventually I looked over to my friend Kyle, who was sitting right across from me in the booth, and said, I just gotta get out of here. This isn't working for me. I just gotta start filming. So I'm walking with him. We were going towards like the west entrance, upstairs, and we were walking by the Great Hall, I think it's called, and we look in there and there's this podium out on a stage, and a bunch of chairs all over the place that were not really systematically placed. I don't know what it was there from. I think a couple days ago I was walking by, I saw a bunch of people in there, but I don't know why. Either way, I thought that would be hilarious if I were to go up there right now and just pitch my midterm as my reflection on this stage with this podium, this stout podium. And my friend Kyle was more excited about it than I was, and I gave him my camera, and that's what happened. Started filming.
Now?
Sure.
Alright, I'm already filming.
Hello! Today we will be talking about film as a construct. We're going to be looking at the way that Vertov viewed his Russian subjects in Man with a Movie. Camera. I started reading right from the paper. I wasn't very rehearsed. It's not too difficult to tell. Reflexivity to expose the nature of the film as a construct. For example, in Man with a Movie Camera, there were several times where the filmmaker himself was exposed in the film to show the fact that he was, even with the camera, showing that he was the one taking the angles, making the shots. Nanook of the North, there was no exposure of the cameraman. It simply looked at, it was almost as taking a lens. They were almost like looking from the inside of a window out to a culture and then describing it without allowing the people to speak for themselves. And what that does is that displaces the people in a way that the viewers come to be removed entirely from coming to understand that culture, and rather view them as something as the other, and the viewer as the us. And eventually, Kyle looked at me while I was holding the camera and said, "Brent, you should act like there's people sitting in these chairs. I think that would be awesome." And so I started walking around as if I was lecturing to a group of people that weren't even there. That was a lot of fun. I actually really enjoyed doing that. There's looking and there's seeing. Looking is, there's a conscious decision behind it. It's purposeful. There's intent. It's a choice. Whereas seeing is, as the question, did you see that, would suggest, is involuntary. It is not a choice. The tourist in Cannibal Tours, filmed by Dennis Rourke, the tourists, what they did is they looked at the people in a way that commodified their culture. They didn't look to indulge in a culture experience with them, but rather indulge in the culture itself. They took a bite out of the culture and made an attempt to take it home with them through the commodification of the things that they made that once meant something to those people. And now those things have lost their meaning in a sense of any sort of true cultural relevance. It used to be connected to something. It used to tie people back to an ancestry in the way that that they would make a specific piece of art. And now that thing has been repurposed. It's been appropriated to satisfy the commodified desires of tourists. There was a cage in between these people. It was like, okay, we're going to take a culture and bring them to America. And we're going to present them to our people in a way that keeps them separated. You have a Westerner on one side of the cage, and then on the inside you have an Aboriginal, and they would look, they would not touch, they would have very little physical contact, as if they would get dirty from even being around these people. They would look from a perspective of their own, as what anthropology refers to as an ethnocentric lens. It's the way that they would view these people in terms of their own culture, rather than taking into consideration that their decisions, their way of life may very well be rational where they come from. And then at some point, to be honest with you, I just wanted to start jumping on chairs. I wanted to start doing something weird. And so I started jumping on the chairs, and it worked out really well with my Margaret Mead explanation. I honestly didn't even mean to do that, but it worked out, having there been 3 chairs there. Next, we're going to talk about the practices of describing. We're going to take a look at 2 films. And I'm just going to start with this one right off the bat, is Margaret Mead. And what she does is she takes a look at the bathing of babies in 1, 2, 3 different cultures. And what she does is the entire time, first she starts out somewhere in, I'm not really quite sure where. All that I know is that it's a black woman bathing her baby. And it's clearly somewhere where it's considered to be, from our perspective, like more third world, a little bit more traditional living. And the way that these people bathe their baby, they go down to this river and they have the kid there, and what they do is they're a lot more aggressive. Margaret Mead describes them as being businesslike, using words that really get at the way, the aggressiveness of the mother with the baby. She does mention the fact that there are alligators in this river, but she really doesn't empathize with the true nature of that. I mean, and you can see that when she compares the bathing of a baby in America in, I believe, first the 1950s. And this whole thing just seems so over the top. It seems so over the top. You have this baby that's really happy, the mom's playing, it's in this like nice little bathtub. They did a patty cake, and then afterwards, the mother was really tentative and careful with the way that the baby was in the bath, being sure to keep an eye on them, but also to be sure that they don't get hurt or slip. Playing with the little rubber ducky. The baby's laughing and smiling the whole time. Whereas in the more traditional culture with the black woman bathing her baby, the baby was crying the whole time. And when you put those 2 things back to back like that describing really changes one's perspective on the traditional culture. It makes it seem like they're more savage, that they're more not fit to care for children in a nurturing way that is commonly associated with motherhood in the United States. Okay, so I guess we were just talking about after the fact, after we filmed me lecturing to an empty room with chairs scattered all over the place. He looks at me and says, you know, we acted as if there were people in those chairs, but then you eventually went and jumped all over them. And he said that it was almost, that it could mean that it could be an underlying way of describing how, even though people are there, sometimes they're really not there or listening while they're in class. So I thought that was really nice. Now, the way that the filmmaker describes his subjects in Baraka is almost completely an opposite to that Margaret Mead did in her film about the bathing of a baby in 3 different cultures. And what he did is he really allowed the subjects to speak for themselves. There was no narrative at all. What he did is he showed us very, very beautiful cinematic perspective of the places that he chose to film. So we had our fun at the Great Hall. We left, and on our way out, we were walking by, and a room right across from the Great Hall had a bunch of chairs lined up in rows with an aisle in between the two columns, like the two sections of the chairs. And in the middle was a table in front. In the middle was a table and one chair. And we see this, and like, that's our next spot. I walk in there and start going off on another reflection piece. First, we're gonna look at Night and Fog, in which the filmmaker takes a very gentle approach into reflecting on the Holocaust. A very traumatic, horrific, one of the worst events that ever occurred in humanity. And what he does, as he's narrating his film, one of the lines that he says is, "The reality of the camps, despised by those who build them, and unfathomable to those who endured them. What hope do we have of truly capturing this reality?" So he describes the event as being so schematic, so distorted, like in the faces of the film, that they cannot be captured, seen in clarity, that we really don't have much hope of understanding the suffering, the torture, the horrific life experiences of all the people who they call the inmates, the things that they suffered there. And when he reflects on this, at no point in the film does he reflect on them as being Jewish, but reflects on them as in terms of their nationality. I believe at one point he says that they came from 22 different nations. These people were being boarded up and shipped out of their country to be put in these camps to die. Next, we're going to talk about Black Rain. Japanese director. This is a film that I think you would actually enjoy. What they do is it's essentially a film about Hiroshima, the atomic bomb. But what the filmmaker does is he appropriates what we would expect that film to be about and uses it to critique Japanese culture. There's a line at the end of the film. I believe that one of the main characters, the father of this young girl, was having trouble getting married due to her exposure to the radiation from the bomb, which is part of the entire cultural problem that's going on there, is that they can't adapt. They don't change their culture. They don't transform it in a way that can accept these people, or that can give them a new place in their culture. They treat them as if Hiroshima never happened. And at the end, there goes something that he's listening to the radio, and they talk about how they've invented a new bomb or something like that. And the main guy, let's see if I can, I got it right here. In which that main character, after hearing this on the radio that they're making more bombs or a new bomb or something of that nature, this main guy who goes through all the suffering and is still one of the very reasons that he himself has not adapted. The culture itself hasn't adapted, which puts him in a position of being displaced or marginalized due to his exposure to the radiation. And at the end, when he hears the radio saying something along the lines of them creating a new bomb, he says, "Human beings learn nothing. They strangle themselves." And it almost seems ironic because he's critiquing American culture. He's critiquing Westerners for, when will they learn? Why are they still making bombs? It's obviously cruel. It destroys people, literally and And even in the aftermath, the families, the culture, things get destroyed. Um, Not even to mention the destruction of the landscape and the way in which they can't even use it due to its radiation anymore. But what he does is, or this is ironic because the culture itself had not adapted. When will human beings learn nothing? They strangle themselves. And in this, the filmmaker makes, he gives us an insight into Japanese culture and the way in which they strangle themselves and don't make room for the people who went through this really traumatic experience. So we're in that room with all those perfectly placed chairs. Everything's all nice and tidy. I wanted to throw something, like mess it up, jump on some chairs, anything. And I think saying that is what triggered our memory. Kyle and I remembered a story that Chris Freeman told us about. He was teaching one of his courses. He's told us this in his class. I've heard him say it in many classes, so I assume he doesn't mind me telling it here. He was teaching a course. Most if not all of the students didn't do the reading, and he was really upset about that. So he grabbed one of the chairs and tossed it, threw it at the wall, and walked out. I believe. I'm pretty sure that's how it went, if my memory serves me correct. So we thought it would be funny to recreate that. I don't know. Alright, next I want to talk about a term that was addressed in McDonald's reading that we had for today. That is transcultural cinema, which gives us a new insight, a new way of indulging in a cultural experience through film. Now, can anyone tell me what transcultural cinema is? Anyone? You. Can you tell me what transcultural cinema is? Did anyone do the readings? No. I didn't seek out to have this purpose behind what I filmed, or what Kyle filmed and I performed in today, but it really got me thinking about the listener, and especially students, and how much they're really listening or participating in class. Sometimes I really do think that teaching in a classroom can be like talking in a room with no one there. And I really do think sometimes that throwing of the chair can be something that a lot of teachers and professors want to do. I'll sit in some of my classes and professors will ask a question and no one answers. I get uncomfortable. And it makes me think, are these people even listening? Do they really want to be here? How much of this are they going to remember when they leave? Probably not much. And they're trying to pass something on, and I know a lot of times that isn't super exciting, but learning is what makes human beings special. That's what makes us different than other animals. And we've lost appreciation for that distinction, for one of our greatest qualities, to be able to learn. So next time when you're looking at your professor, just think, they're teaching you something that maybe will make a difference for you later, or if anything is just a chance for you to exercise your learning capacity, because the more you practice learning, the better you get at it. You become like a sponge again.